Hey, everybody. Welcome to Health Online Lesson 1. Today, we're going to be talking about conflict management. So there's a handful of questions in your Ed puzzle. You're marked based on completion and thoughtfulness. So thoughtfully answer the questions. It's not going to take you a super long time, but be as thoughtful as you can, because these strategies are going to become very helpful over the course of your entire life. So I'm going to share this tab with you. And here we go. Slowly loading. So, like I said, we're going to talk about conflict management skills today. We're going to start with a little bit of vocabulary and strategies that you would use to solve different types of conflict. Okay. The first being negotiation, right? That idea of trying to trade this for that, taking over, arranging the terms. So, for example, when my husband and I bought a new house, this wasn't necessarily a conflict, but where there was a conflict over the price of the house. And so we negotiated in that we proposed something, they proposed something else. We proposed something, they proposed something else. And we went back and forth trying to agree to terms that would be acceptable to both parties. So negotiating to come to a deal between both parties. Compromise. You're probably all very used to this idea of compromise in your life, right? Compromising with your parents, compromising with your siblings, but that idea of giving up something that you want, a piece of something that you want, to get some of what you want. There's all kinds of compromises that you make in your life, right? So perhaps you want to go out with your friends, and your parents say that you can't go to the mall, but you want to go shopping. So the compromise is that they let you go to like 2 stores in one wing of the mall instead of the whole mall, for example. I remember when I was in high school, I wanted to buy a car in grade 12. I had saved up money over some time, and I wanted to buy a car. And so the compromise was, for when I was in the first half of grade 12, the only person I was allowed to drive around was my brother. Otherwise, there was no deal. I was not allowed to have friends in the car. It was a compromise that I could live with because it meant I could drive a car. This idea of consensus, right? When everybody involved reaches a general agreement. Consensus is very hard to come by in our society and in our life, and probably even within your household and your family. I know that we were watching a movie tonight, and we couldn't come to a consensus on what we wanted to watch, so we had to come to a compromise instead. Another one is mediation. And mediation is when an extra person, so a neutral third party, comes into the picture to review the conflict, review the process. They are an outsider. Do not lean to one way or the other, right? They're not a family member or a friend. A mediator doesn't offer solutions. They don't make any judgment, and they basically try to push the conflict negotiation, or what we call mediation, to a conclusion that is going to be reasonable for both parties. So how does that mediation actually work? Okay, so steps to mediation. There's a few of them. The first one is setting the stage, in the sense that there can't be any interruptions or name callings. The mediator stays neutral, and both sides of the conflict, the parties on both sides, have to agree that they want to solve the conflict, right? There needs to be commitment from the parties involved. Okay? The second step, telling the story. The mediator, which is third party, right, is neutral, doesn't agree with one side or the other, asks each person, right, or each side to tell their story, to recount what they believe happened. And after both sides have spoken, the mediator summarizes what they hear. You, red book, have said this, 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 and this. You, yellow book, have said this, 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 and this. And then both sides also get a chance to add more details. Have they forgotten them potentially? Okay, forgot to add or needed to explain more clearly, so the mediator has a bigger picture of what's going on. The third step is setting goals, right? Both parties identify their own goals and ask, the mediator then asks for clarification on those goals so that the mediator has as much information as possible. Brainstorming possibilities. Right, the mediator isn't a dictator in mediation. The mediator is an active listener who is contributing positive ideas and facilitating a discussion between both sides, not forcing a discussion. Okay, so they're very much a facilitator. They encourage both parties to brainstorm using questions. What would you like the other party to do, for example? And they record everything. They don't censor anything. They don't leave any of the details out. They don't change words. They record everything that happens. And then they also evaluate the options. Okay, the parties choose a solution. Right, the mediator asks each side which possibilities they would be willing to work with, or what they would be willing to make work. And the mediator then restates these options. Ultimately speaking, there's right, like a log or a summary sheet that the mediator uses. What each side or each person represented gets a copy of this. And then ultimately speaking, once that decision is made of what is going to happen or transpire, both sides would get a signed copy indicating that this is the final agreed upon process or decision that they were going for. So conflicts between parents and teens. I know for me, had lots of conflict with my parents. What teenager doesn't? And a lot of those conflicts for me were when I was in high school, in the sense that, right, I wanted to drive a car. And I was a rule follower growing up. I liked rules. I didn't like to get in trouble. I didn't like to rock the boat. My brother certainly had more conflict with my parents than I did. But for me, the conflict was over the vehicle and right, if my cell phone, because we had old Android cell phones, digital, not digital, analog phones, right? They could literally only phone. We didn't have texting and stuff. But I had to have it with me if I was driving in the event of an emergency, and my phone was always dead. So that caused great conflict for me. But generally speaking, I didn't have a lot of conflict with my parents because I was a rule follower. But I know that's not necessarily the case, right? Had I not been so active in sports and had a very rigid schedule and very concrete goals related to my sport, I probably may have had more conflict with my parents over, trying to go out or whatever. So think about the conflicts that you have in your home with your parents and or caregivers, grandparents, whomever. Right? What types of conflicts do you have with them? Are they related to friends? Are they related to going out? Are they related to curfew? Are they related to spending money? What are the types of conflicts that you have? And then consider, how do you deal with those conflicts? How do you come to solutions with those conflicts? So think about the last conflict that you had with a parent or a caregiver in your home, and how did that come to a solution? Was that a consensus that you both agreed upon? Was there a compromise? Was there a negotiation? Or was there just somebody saying, nope, this is the way it's going to be, the end? Right? How did that conflict play out in your home? Right. So some conflicts could have been, oh, I fought with my parents a lot about cleaning my room. I am not. When it comes to the cleanliness of the bedroom, in terms of clothes on the floor, my room was never clean growing up. So topics of conflict in your home might be cleaning your room, agreeing to a curfew, doing chores, eating breakfast, doing homework on time, actually coming to your online classes, talking on the phone, cell phones. No doubt conflict revolves around cell phones in many of your homes, right? Wearing a coat. So if we were in class, we would role play, but we are not. So I want you to think about, in the last question here, is I want you to think about a conflict you recently had in your home with a parent or a caregiver. And I want you to think about what happened in that conflict and just briefly describe it and how you could use two different conflict management strategies to solve the conflict. So the consensus, negotiation, mediation, etc. What types of conflict management strategies could you use to solve a similar conflict in the future? So, like I said, this is based on completion and thoughtfulness, right? It is not challenging. It's one of those things you just have to do. Like I promised, this was not a super long presentation, but the content will help you through the rest of your life, assuming you take conflict management over the course of your teen years seriously, because the way you deal with conflict as a teen often can start to shape the way you deal with conflict as an adult. And you will experience conflict in your life. You'll experience it, right? Some bigger than others, obviously, but there will come times where, right in the workplace, having to have difficult conversations with your colleagues or your peers, right, as you grow up. So complete these questions and we'll see you in the Google Meet a little bit later.